At Nichols, and we have a check in the amount of $6,300 for our sponsorship for this next year. And I know Lisa Kleber, the executive director, was unable to attend today, so we have some others, like her husband Shane. But so we're happy to be sponsors of this great. What's that? Oh yeah. If I could get y'all to introduce yourself, I appreciate it.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Captain Kelly Denning. I'm the Executive Director for the Louisiana Maritime Academy that we're starting at Nichols State University.
And I'm Jeremy Becker. I'm the Executive Director of the Nichols Foundation.
Shane Kleber, the Director of the Colonel Athletic Association.
Shelby Hippolyte. Just I'm all along for the ride with it.
Shelby's being nice, and he's one of our former student athletes himself. He's Nichols Hall of Fame. His group will be celebrating 50 years this year of their championship season, 75-76. And if you're interested, everyone's welcome to come out. It'll be February 28th as we take on McNeese. So it'll be a nice game there. And just want to say thanks to St. Mary for always supporting Nichols State University. We appreciate all you do. We'll also be back here for the Colonel Caravan in June, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's great to see y'all. Great to have you here today. Mike Monclaw is a 1990 graduate from USL, better known as UL now, with a degree in business administration. After college, he obtained a job at Reed Tool Company as a drill bit salesman in the Lafayette and Houma area. But more significantly, in 1994, Mike joined forces with his father's business, Monclaw Well Service, a workover company with 7 workover rigs. In 2020, Mike took on the role as president of the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association, fighting on behalf of the industry at the state capitol for every oil and gas company around. He is married to his wife of 27 years, Kathy, and has 1 daughter, Millie. Mike.
Thank you, sir. All right, my water. All right, thanks. I'll try to get y'all out of here before 3 o'clock. Appreciate the Atchafalaya Intracoastal Coalition for having me today. I love to see our service cities like Morgan City bring out such support. It's great. Tomorrow is Lafayette. We go on a road show every year. It's called the State of the Industry Address, and this is my 3rd. So I did Lake Charles and New Orleans already, got Morgan City today, Lafayette tomorrow, and then we've also got on the schedule Houston, Shreveport, Mandeville, and Fairbanks, which is a little small town north of Monroe. Got a lot of history here in Morgan City. Is that better? All right. I got a lot of history here in Morgan City. My first job Reed Tool Company, I remember making crew change at Shell, pretty much right across the street from here, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you got to wait on that helicopter to come back for those company men coming back in. That was in my Reed Tool days. I remember bringing bits to the docks when the water was almost over into the trailers. Lot of great memories, Morgan City. Then I got some memories that weren't so great. After I left Reed, our barge business, I had a lot of in and outs here. Central Boats, know those guys really well. Loaded lots of inland waters machinery out on barges and keyways, and went out of their dock a lot. But one time we had a barge rig that came in for a hurricane, and we stacked it on the Schaefer Canal. Any of you guys that know these waters, hurricane came in and it knocked our barge off of the bank. It turned it sideways, and we were stuck in the Schaefer Canal upside down with a barge rig for about 6 months trying to get a group to come in and salvage it. So had a lot of stuff happen here. Also, we had one of our land rigs was going to go to do a project drilling in Belize, Central America, and we always kind of wanted to say we were international. So Belize is a great place to go international. So we had to figure out how we were going to get our land rig there without having to drive it all the way through Mexico. So we contracted these guys, Roger, and the name of their boat was the Bluebill. We like calling it the Spoonbill, but it got us there all right. And we got to Belize, and we drilled a well there, and we were hoping they would make a well so that they would keep the rig for long term, and they made a dry hole. So we kind of licked our wounds, got back on the Spoonbill, and came back. But I always regret not making a well there, because if we would have, I'd probably had a house in Belize. So, but good times. All right, this first slide, we'll start. This is one of the other trade organizations that we do a lot with in Baton Rouge, LaMoga. They do a study every about 5 years where it's an economic impact study to show what our industry brings to the state of Louisiana. And as you can see, this is all inclusive of upstream, midstream, and downstream sectors. So this is not, your typical, this is not what drilling is bringing, right? This is all of the above. So you got $77.7 billion, that's 25% of the state's economy comes from our industry. Over 300,000 jobs that represent $25.5 billion in salaries to the state. 3.5 billion to the state's taxes, and what's not listed here is over 1 billion in property taxes paid directly to parishes. So LOGA has traditionally been more of the upstream side, but we do get a lot of support from the midstream and downstream players because we are who get them the products to make. So they've been very supportive of us through the years, and we're appreciative of them. I actually called the guy that did this study. He's an economist out of Lafayette, Stephen Barnes, just to get a feel for what percent of that number, that 77 billion, is upstream. The guys that are actually drilling and producing the oil. And he said it was about 20%. So if you kind of wanted to play with that number a little bit, but I mean, it's certainly lagging from what it used to bring. And that's what we're trying to fix every day at LOGA in Baton Rouge at the state capitol. All right, as expected, there's a lot of fireworks when our new president came in. In the first 9 months, he's done a lot. Here is a slide many of y'all may have seen already, and he says, "Drill, baby, drill," but he had better luck cracking the whip on the Cracker Barrel CEO than he will on the CEOs in the oil and gas industry by bringing oil down from the highest average ever of $80 a barrel under Biden to hitting $58 last week. The average under Trump is still 67, but by the end of the year, I'm sure it'll be in the low 60s. And if we get into the 50s next year, it's going to be another tough year. Here is that slide I was talking about. So you can see, even at an average of 47 a barrel under Bush, you can see the step ladder of, I'm sorry, wrong slide. So this is the price of oil under each. You can see that drop under Trump. And we always seem to vote ourselves into lower pricing, right? Oil and gas tends to be more Republican, but we vote ourselves the opposite way. And so when the Dems are in office, we have higher commodity prices, which we make more money on. All right, here's the rig count, by the presidents. And you can see that $47 under Bush, that step ladder increase, but that was due to the horizontal shale revolution that started in about 2004. You can see a drop off in 2009 for the Great Recession. I remember my stocks going down drastically that week. Then another step ladder up to a 3-decade high of 1,919 rigs running under Obama. Then you see OPEC flooded the market in 2015. It dropped back down. And then Trump came in and we rebounded to about 1,000 rigs under Trump until COVID sent it down to 433. Drilling never got back to Trump levels under Biden, despite the highest oil prices of any president in history. This is mostly due to allowing for longer lateral sections. So, you're drilling these horizontal wells, and you used to have to drill 10 or 15 wells to do what one well can do now on a 5-mile lateral. So a lot of the technology that our industry has come up with has made us better and better at what we do, and we can produce more with less. All right, Trump's second term, we've already lost 50 rigs, and that is mostly due to the price of oil coming down to $58. However, the natural gas market, like our Haynesville shale, those rigs have ticked up. So of the 50 rigs that we've lost in 2025, it was a net loss of 68 oil rigs drilling for oil and a pickup of 18 rigs drilling for natural gas. In today's world, where we used to drill mostly straight holes, especially here in South Louisiana, everything now, all investment dollars, they want these horizontal plays. And that has really hurt our market in South Louisiana. 79% of the nation's rigs are drilling for oil, only 21% drilling for natural gas. 85% of the rigs drilling are horizontal, and only 15% are drilling the conventional wells we are used to here in South Louisiana. So we always look at charts that show the WTI versus the rig count, and it's always a good barrier. But what we decided to do this year was change it up a little bit, and this is rigs drilling for oil versus the WTI, and then we'll show you one drilling for natural gas only. So this is, you can see the highs of about 900 rigs drilling for oil in 2019. Then the drastic fall from COVID, and then I can remember the day during COVID when oil actually went to negative 37. Oil rigs have pretty much followed the price of oil pretty closely since 2020, ramping up to 625 rigs while chasing 120 a barrel in 2022. With the depletion of the DUC inventory and longer laterals, the U.S. oil output continues to hit new highs. In case you don't know what a DUC is drilled uncompleted wells. And when you drill these horizontals, you have a 4-well pad, and you drill these 4 wells, and then you move on, and you have to wait on the frack company to come in. Well, there's a lot more rigs than there are fracking companies. So there's always this inventory of DUCs. And so back before Trump's first presidency, there was like 8,000 DUCs in the United States. Today, there's about 4,000. So we've knocked that DUC inventory way down, which is one of the reasons that even though President Biden put the foot on our throats on regulatory side, he was still breaking production records because we were still completing that DUC inventory. Here is the natural gas, pretty much same slide as the last, but just wanted to illustrate how little rigs there are in number that are providing natural gas to fuel the world. All of our homes are heated by natural gas. We're sending natural gas in LNG form to Europe and Asia. And basically today we have 114 rigs drilling for natural gas. It's a very low number when you think about how much we do. Now, this is rigs that are drilling specifically for natural gas. But there's also what is called associated gas. That's when you drill an oil well, but it also makes gas. So their main purpose is oil, but they make a little bit of gas. A lot of times in the Permian back in the day, they would just flare the gas off. It wasn't worth anything. Natural gas was real low, so they would just flare it and cash in on their oil. Well, today there's more and more pipelines being built in West Texas, so those wells that used to just flare off are now going to the gas sales line. You can see here the associated gas that comes in from the Permian, how much it is. These are oil wells that make a little bit of gas, and the wells in the Permian are just, there's so many, they're so vast. That area is just, it's, when you fly over, if you've ever flown to Midland, all you look out is wells when you're in the plane about to land. Here's a pie chart that actually shows where the oil and natural gas is coming from. So the one on the right is natural gas. That's the Marcellus is in the northeast part of the United States. It covers Pennsylvania into Ohio, and those are real prolific oil, natural gas wells. Haynesville is number 2 as far as the basins go, but number 3 when you take into effect just the associated gas from the Permian. That's how much oil they make, that they have that much gas coming with it. And you can see how much oil they make on this slide. They are so dominant. It is really the greatest basin in the world in Permian. All right, here's Louisiana's rig count for the last 3 years. South Louisiana remains still a very, very slow market. Hopefully the recent legislation of lowering severance tax, clock on legacy lawsuits will help increase both land and inland waters in the years to come. With Trump ending the LNG pause and natural gas prices rebounding to above 3 since Trump came in, the Haynesville has seen an uptick in activity. You can see we're now up 9 rigs from last year in the Haynesville. And the Haynesville has a border, right? Oil and gas doesn't understand those borders, so I wish Haynesville was all in Louisiana, but it's not. We have 26 rigs on our side. They have 17 on the other side. So we need to be real careful when we do legislation in Baton Rouge that we don't make ourselves uneconomical or uncompetitive with the other side of the border. And we've had a hard time fighting that off through the years. I'm sure Senator Allen remembers some of these. All right, on to the state's top producers. All right, Hill Corp and TPIC, they've been number 1 and number 2 in Louisiana for a long time. This is for oil only, okay? Castex, or Canty, I'm sorry, is number 3 for the second year in a row. Big mover this year was Perdido. They have properties here in St. Mary at Cote Blanche Bay. And they just recently moved up to number 4 due to an acquisition of a Plaquemine field from Hellas Oil Company. Black Bay was a prolific field for those guys at Hellas for many years. Dunn Exploration rounds out the top 5. A lot of people look at this and they go, well, where's Exxon? Where's Shell? Where's BP? Where are the big guys? The big guys really don't drill in our state anymore, right? It's all independents that are left drilling, okay? However, in this top 10, there are 2 subsidiaries of Exxon. So Denbury was purchased by Exxon about 2 years ago, and number 9 is XTO. That is also an Exxon company. So that is the only major that is on this board in our top 25, and really they're not drilling under Exxon. Here's the top 25 natural gas players. And on natural gas, we had a huge acquisition last year. Southwestern Energy and Chesapeake merged and they became Expand Energy. And you can see how dominant they are. They're twice as big on this total than the second top producer in our state, Comstock. All of these players pretty much are, until number 13, are all in the Haynesville. So Hill Corp's natural gas comes in at 13. That's how much natural gas play we have in North Louisiana. And then here's where we combine. It's called BOE. barrel of oil equivalent. So we take the oil and we take the natural gas and we combine them into one with an equation. And you can, well, let me go back. You recognize those first, that top 10, right? That's all Haynesville. When we combine it, it doesn't change very much. Again, how much natural gas we're producing in our state. Hillcorp comes in at number 6 because they do make a lot of oil for that equation. And Texas Petroleum comes in at number 9. So only 2 players are in the top 10 from South Louisiana for production. All right, offshore. Thanks to the Biden administration in 2024, it marked the first time in 42 years that we did not have an offshore lease sale. Then his 5-year plan only called for 3 lease sales over the next 5 years. So Trump came in, and in the one big beautiful bill, he replaced Biden's schedule with this. So we have 1 this year, and then we'll have 2 for the next 15 years. So this is one thing that Trump has been great on, is the regulation side, but Trump likes low oil prices because he likes low gasoline for the country. And he's already gotten OPEC to open the spigot twice in his first 9 months. So that's why you see the price of oil coming down to $58. All right, here's the top 25 offshore. And you can see exactly how dominant Shell is offshore with over 185 million BOE produced in 2024. To put that into perspective, how much BOE Shell is producing, the BOE leader on land a while ago was only 44? 44 on land. And you're at 185 for Shell. It just puts into perspective exactly how much they produce on those deep water wells. BP comes in at number 2 with 148 million. Anadarko at number 3. Chevron will be looking at moving up next year with the new exploration that they found, along with the Hess merger that the courts have finally let go through. So next year we'll be looking at those guys to move up. Talos is number 5 after they picked up the Quarter North properties. 25% of our nation's oil come from federal lands and waters. 15% from offshore and 10% from federal lands. It's also important to remember the restoration efforts through the GOMESA, the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act. This is a sharing program from all of the states along the coast in the Gulf, Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama. To date, Louisiana has received $736 million from GOMESA to fund restoration projects. Annually, Louisiana's share has been capped at $156 million, but thanks to the Louisiana delegation, especially Scalise, our majority leader, for passing the increasing royalty sharing provision as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill. So now there will be $150 million more annually going into the fund, which Louisiana will get about $50 million of that. So we will be getting pretty close to $200 million a year for restoration projects. All right, while we're on restoration or the coast, sure everybody saw this. What a disheartening day that was when you consider this is just one of 43 other cases. A few weeks later, these same lawyers that sued Chevron had a meeting at Lafourche to try to convince their parish council into voting for it. So I made my way down to Lafourche for that. And, I have a lot of emotion when I get in there because I was in the barge business. We had to cut our barges up into pieces and sell them for scrap. There's only 2 places in the world that require inland waters have inland waters geography, and it's us and Nigeria. So we were able to sell 2 rigs to Nigeria, paid our bank down a little bit, and the other 9 rigs literally we cut into scrap. And it was a painful exercise. We had to bankrupt that barge business. We still have our land business, but going through that exercise was painful. And I went over there and told that story to the commissioners and kind of broke down a little bit. And then, afterwards they were all like, man, you did great. You might have just convinced them to vote our way. But I was really proud of Lafourche. After we got to speak in public, they went into an executive session with the law firm that is suing everyone and went back for over an hour while we had to wait for them to come back. And I just thought, why can't they just speak in public? And it's because some kind of a confidentiality with the attorneys. It didn't make much sense to me, but thank God Lafourche came back out and voted with industry, and I was really proud of them. Chevron also was sure to appeal this, and they did, and they got a big win in the Supreme Court of the United States to move this back to federal court, which is something that we tried to keep in federal court years ago, as Senator Allen remembers as well. Moving on to something more positive. All right, LNG. Not too much LNG here or where I'm from in Lafayette. Our canals, I guess, aren't deep enough. I've been hoping Lafayette could compete with Lake Charles for years, and we can't get there, right? But Lake Charles is in such a great place, and now so is Plaquemine with all the activity going on. But we really do stand at a transformative moment in energy with LNG. In August, liquefied natural gas reached an all-time high of 9.33 in September. And then in August, we beat it. September, we beat, reverse, 9.3 to 9.4 from September to August. So we keep beating the record of how much LNG we're putting out there. Due to LNG, global natural gas demand is projected to rise more than 20% by the year 2050. So that's a big deal, and it's probably why, even though the oil prices have come down under Trump with OPEC flooding the market, natural gas has gone up. So we've seen natural gas go to about $3.40, $3.50, but it has really kind of nestled above 3, which is a whole lot better than it has been for about 2 years when it was at 2 or even less. Here is the capacity of Louisiana for LNG. And you can see this word MTPA, that is million tons per annum, all right? To put into context, 1 MTPA powers 80,000 homes for a year. Cheniere's Sabine Pass has a capacity of 30. Venture Global Plaquemine, 27. And if they get their expansion approved, it'll be 45. Sempra's LNG is 12, and Venture Global is 10. So counting all that with the addition in Plaquemine, we will be powering 76 million homes in Europe and Asia with our LNG that comes out of our state. And we're doing that with only 114 rigs drilling today. So it's pretty impressive. I was honored to be invited to Venture Global's expansion announcement in Plaquemine, where Governor Landry hosted the Interior, Doug Burgum, the head of the Interior, as well as the Secretary of the Department of Energy, Chris Wright. And it was really an amazing day to see how much Venture Global has invested in Louisiana, and just to know what they've spent out there. They have this whole thing, because of where it is in Plaquemine, levied. And it is a steel levee, and they probably have 40-inch casing punched into the ground all the way around it, and then a steel sheets all the way around this place that they have, I guess, some kind of neoprene system with it where they can close this off if there's a levee break to keep that whole place from going underwater. It is, just to build that, it was billions of dollars. But we got to walk through there, the brains of the place, and they had these Sprinter vans pulled up to serve us lunch. We were going to bring us on a tour, and we get in there, and we're driving us around explaining everything, what everything does. And then we got to this point where there were just people, the workers with hard hats and their safety gear, and they were all standing there, and it looked like they were in line for lunch. So I guess we're just going to get out and eat lunch with them. And we get out, and as soon as we start walking their way, 6,000 people started clapping. And man, I literally had chills. And we walked, and I was like, what is going on? And they were walking us to the podium where Doug Burgum and Chris Wright and Governor Landry were going to speak. And 6,000 employees in hard hats are just chanting, USA, USA. And it was really, I mean, it was awesome. I'm going to play y'all a video. I'm not sure you'll be able to hear it, but we'll see if you can. This was, where's the volume on this? All right, let's see if it'll work. But there was people on 6 floors up on every stairwell. It was really impressive. There's another one. That's what 17 billion looks like in Louisiana. So it was just a really awesome day. Saloga has been very supportive of LNG, whether it's testifying at police juries, reading letters of support at the EPA, DEQ, or FERC town halls, because these LNG exports are going to European nations that want CCUS tags on their energy. Most LNG players have future CCUS projects associated with their terminals. And in fact, just a few weeks ago, the first Class 6 permit was finally issued in Louisiana to Sempra, who's one of the partners in Cameron LNG. CCUS, it's contentious. I know there's a lot of people that don't like it, but if we don't take it, Texas will. And it's Trump. There was an opportunity that I thought for a minute that Trump was going to cancel it. And if he would have, it probably just all goes away. But he didn't. And so we have these projects that are lined up. We have LNG people that want these because they can actually, their product is more attractive and they can actually ask more for their product to these countries that want that label. And, you know, my wife sends me to the store, and if I come back and I don't bring the organic milk, I'm in trouble, right? It costs more, it's organic, what does that really mean? I don't know, but it's the same thing here. And we don't necessarily, we're not big climate activists in the United States, so most of us don't believe in it, but in Europe, they do. And the companies that want to buy natural gas want that tag on there. And so that is one of the reasons we've been supportive of it. It will create jobs. Every CCUS project, they have to drill a minimum of 8 wells. It puts our service companies back to work, and that's one of the reasons we're for it. But there's a lot of people that are against it, and this Facebook is going crazy, and the vitriol that they're spewing is crazy. Watch this. This is some of the things we're dealing with. Kids at schools with masks running for their lives. And nothing could be further from the truth. We've been doing storage of CO2 for 30 years in Louisiana. We, under EOR Class 2 injection. There's other things that are injected into our surface, whether it's salt water or other things. There's injection wells that have been working in our state for 75 years. With no issues. Here is what it really looks like. All right, this is a facility, Lockhart Crossing in Walker, Louisiana, Livingston Parish. This was done about 25 years ago by Denbury Resources, who now is owned by Exxon. They sold this particular project to TMR, one of Loga former chairman, Mr. Ray Lassane. This is his facility where they do the carbon goes into the ground, it comes back out with oil, the oil is separated and sold, and the carbon just goes back into the system and pumped down on the ground. So if the project lasts 10 years, at the end of the project, all of the carbon that was taken from that one-way pipeline is in the ground. And if they walk away, when we've produced this all we can produce here, we're going to plug out the field, the carbon is still in the ground. At this field, they have stored 24 billion with a B metric tons of carbon in Walker, Louisiana. And I'm going to zoom out so you can see exactly where you are. That's the 97 houses that I count that are cohabitating with CCUS or CO2 being stored in the vicinity. And so this is what it really looks like, not the kids running from school. As I told you a while ago, we're making more oil and natural gas than we ever have due to technology. There's one thing that oil and gas is good at, is technology. And we need to trust that they are going to continue to be the best at what they do in CCUS, because they've done it for 30 years in EOR. All right. LSU got a call from the DOE, the Trump DOE, and said, we are so tired of Louisiana and the parishes that don't want to get rid of CO2. We want to look at a way to get rid of CO2 and keep the parishes out of it. So LSU says, well, what do you have in mind? And they say, well, we want to look at the inland waters of Louisiana. And can you help us? So LSU calls me, I call my members, and I got about 15 members that work in the inland waters and spoke to all of them. Some of them weren't really good candidates, but basically the DOE wants to help fund the projects, whether it be putting the pipeline in to get the CO2 there or putting that system in. That system costs about probably about $110 million to put in place. So it's not money that a lot of the independents have in our state to invest. So if you can get a DOE to come in and help invest in these projects, it'll help. So we did that, and here's one of the slides from LSU from the Department of Energy. Why inland waters? The state owns the surface and mineral rights, so no discrepancy. No parish resistance or NIMBY politics. NIMBY is not in my backyard politics. You can use a class 2 instead of a class 6, so it saves a tremendous amount of time. And there's less legal risks on the pore space issues. And the infrastructure is already there. So over the last several months, well, with the one big beautiful bill, they actually, at the final hours, they moved EOR, which used to be $60, up to the $85. That is the same thing for CCS. And by the way, CCUS is just the utilization, which is what EOR is, okay? So they moved it up to 85, so you get the same credit to do an EOR project now that you did for CCUS. I'm all for that. I'm in the rig business. I want to make more oil, and if we can do it in the marshes of Louisiana, well, that has been dead since coastal erosion lawsuits hit, it's a good thing. So these are some of the players, or some of the fields. You might recognize some of these that are good candidates. Cote Blanche Bay, that's right here. Gordon Island Bay, Grand Bay, Hackberry. There's 4 pages of different areas that are good candidates to do EOR projects with the DOE sponsoring the money to do it. So it's a positive, and these are some of our members that are looking at these projects. Three of these already have non-disclosure agreements with LSU and the DOE, and they're looking to move this process forward. But there's a big problem that these people are going to have, and that's the supply and demand, or what's left of the rig fleet to drill and do these kind of projects. as I mentioned, the coastal erosion lawsuits killed this industry. We used to have barge rigs up and down our canals all the time. We don't anymore. It's because anyone that applied for a permit to dredge was named in a lawsuit. And no one is going to continue to invest as long as that continues to happen. So here is the barge market in 2010. Parker Drilling had a report that they put out every week. It would show what rigs are working where. Okay, I know you probably can't read this, it's too small. I'm just showing you how many rigs were in the market just 15 years ago. There were 9 barge rig contractors. There were 58 barge rigs, of which 39 were drilling and 17 were workovers. In red, there's about, 12 rigs that were really in bad shape. They were cold stacked. So in fairness, at that time, there were 41 marketed rigs in the inland waters. There were 20 operators on this day while those rigs were working. So there was 32 rigs working on that day for 20 different operators in South Louisiana's inland waters. Here's what today looks like. A lot easier to read. Parker just got bought by Neighbors. Neighbors doesn't like the barge business. Neighbors is selling the Parker rigs. So all these operators that are looking at future projects are very worried. Hillcorp bought their own barges years ago. They saw the writing on the wall. Perdita did the same thing, bought their own rig. So now you only have Coastal and Parker. Coastal has only 1 rig working. Parker has 1 rig working. I mean, who wants to invest and buy Parker's rigs when you got 1 rig working? I mean, we got to have ROI, right? Return on investment. This is how tough it is in the barge market right now. And so some of the players in the inland waters world are looking at, do we need to buy a rig? Do we need to have a co-op? Do all the operators need to get together and buy a rig? I've been in the rig business. It ain't fun. It's tough. It's one of the toughest businesses in the world. You have to deal with all the people, the Jones Act lawsuits. If you get hurt on land, you sprain your ankle, you go back to work 3 days later. If you sprain your ankle on the water, you call the lawyer because you see the billboard on your way home. He asks you how your back is, and you say, no, it's my ankle. He said, yeah, but when you sprain your ankle, you remember when your back? And that's how they get you every time. It's always a back. So I've been in that business. It's not easy. And I don't know what the state's going to do if those Parker rigs all go to Nigeria. We're hoping we can keep at least a few of them here. Because to build a new barge rig, it's $20 million. No one is going to invest that. So this is one of the problems that our state has, is how do we fix our inland waters? Not just getting operators to invest with coastal, but if they do invest, will they have a rig? So there's one of our problems we have. All right, so we were honored also to have our governor at my family business on June 24th to sign 2 laws and 1 executive order that were very pro oil and gas. So since I've been at LOGA, now it's been about 5 years, we've tried to lower the severance tax on oil every year for 5 years. And every year when we try, I get a gun put at each side of my head. And Senator Rowland knows. So oil is the highest severance tax in the United States, 12.5%. Texas is 4.6. So you drill a well in Vinton, Louisiana, and you drill one in Orange, Texas. They're about 5 miles apart. You get 8% better on your money day one if you drill it in Texas. It's a big number when you're talking about returns. All right? So we're trying to fix Louisiana. Our governor was committed to do that. And we were able to get it past the finish line. But in the past, what would happen is I would go in there and everybody would agree, oh yeah, man, we got to get more competitive. And then they would figure out, okay, well, the way we're going to fix it is we're going to raise natural gas. And so the oil comes down and natural gas goes up. And I'm like, well, you want to punish the only region in the state that's busy with 26 rigs? you want that to go to 5 rigs? So my natural gas guys would put a gun on my head, don't raise my severance. And my oil guys would put a gun on my head, you better lower my severance. And so I was in that position for my first 5 years at Loga. So this last session, they really came up with something that was unique and good. Kind of hold your nose for my Haynesville guys. But I think with the way that natural gas is going, it'll be okay. So what they did is they lowered oil on new drills only to 6.5. And to negate that so they wouldn't have a fiscal note at the Capitol, they took the horizontal exemption that the Haynesville has, and they shortened it from 2 years to 18 months. And there was a lot of arguing back and forth. Of course, they came out at 12 months. We had to fight back to 18, right? So we fought it back to 18 months. But I did a study with my members, and they sent me their break-evens, and they were pretty much breaking even at 325. So if natural gas was 325, they would only get 18 months anyway of their severance. So I was able to get the Haynesville guys on board, and with Trump coming in, releasing the pause on LNG and the predictions that natural gas is going to raise 20% until the year 2050, and the price of natural gas today at 325, it's hold your nose, and the Haynesville took it. So we were able to make some moves on severance, which is great. The second one was we ran a bill for legacy lawsuits the session before, and we didn't get even a vote in the Senate. So this session, Jacob Landry from Lafayette was going to run it, a representative from the Abbeville area. They ended up, we get it into the Senate, we don't get a vote. We talked about that earlier. But they had this reorg bill from the Department of Energy, and it was Senate Bill 244. So they ended up taking our bill, and they just put it on 244, which was over 200 pages long. It's kind of like Pelosi. We got to read it to find out what's in it. Got to pass it to find out what's in it. And so we did get the thing done. Now there was a couple things in there we didn't like, which you mentioned. The governor calls me one day, he says, Mike, we getting legacy done. I said, okay. He goes, but you're going to have to work with me. I said, what you mean? He goes, the other side wants 36 months. He goes, we can't do anything retroactive. That's against the courts. I mean, we would never get that done. There's people that haven't filed suits yet, but they're close. He goes, you can't do that to anybody. He goes, you're going to have to give them 18 months. He goes, you wanted 18 months on your bill last year. He says, so you wanted 18 and they want 36. We're meeting at the middle at 27 or 26 actually is what it was. Yeah. And so it's the year 27. So September 1st of 2027, there will be new laws regulating legacy lawsuits. And so I didn't really like that timeline either, but about 15 years ago, my predecessor, Don Briggs, was at the Capitol, and they offered him a 10-year. And he slammed his book on the desk and walked out, and he didn't take it 15 years ago. It's time to start the clock. I don't like the 27 September 27 either, but the clock has started. We're now under 2 years, and it's going to go by fast. So we're excited to get that done. The other thing that Jeff signed this day was an executive order to try to help inland waters, and that was to any workover spent over $1 million, over $100,000 on a workover, you would get a royalty reduction from the state, not severance, royalty of 6% less. So if there's different leases in the state. Some of them are 25, some of them are 20, some of them are 23. So whatever your percent is you have with the state, you get 6% less if you go spend $100,000 on a workover. And it was to, rejuvenate some of the wells in inland water. So that has not been signed yet, but it's very close. All right, let's see. All right, next session, we expect to, again, fight off more CCUS problems. We're looking at the Louisiana Oilfield Anti-Indemnity Act, which has to do with personal injury on third parties, and it was an act that was signed in 1984. But there's been a lot of changes since '84 to our industry, and I think it's kind of run its course, but there's a lot of moving parts. There's 4 parties at stake, and it's the contractors, the oil companies, the insurance companies, and the insurance agents. So a lot to explain in it, but it's we're having committee hearings now to try to figure out what we're going to do. And then there's some stuff with Lou Code. If you have a stripper well in the same field that you have a good producer, that stripper well is paying the 12.5%. And stripper wells in most parts of the state that are just in stripper areas, that's a well that makes like less than 10 barrels a day, they get a different rate than the 12.5%. So we're trying to work something to split those out from the Lou codes. But other than that, I'm sure there'll be a lot of things that we don't know about yet. It's still very early. And that pretty much concludes, except for, I'll just give you the state of the industry, all right? There are lots of positives on the midstream and downstream side. Pipelines should be really busy. LNG will continue to break export records, and refineries will remain our GDP champion. As far as upstream goes, legislatively, we made good strides with severance and the legacy, but with Trump lowering the price 20% of the commodity, that's gonna hurt our upstream guys from drilling. So I'm not sure about the drill baby drill for oil, but for natural gas, we're above $3. Things will be good for the natural gas players, I think, for the foreseeable future. And then, I don't know, if oil goes into the 50s, it could be another bloodbath for the industry. It really could. I know a lot of service companies are barely hanging on, and if it goes into the 50s and we get beat up more on pricing, it is going to be a difficult ride. So I enjoyed being here today. I hope I wasn't too negative, but the truth is, it is what it is. So I do have time for questions if y'all do. Yes, ma'am.
Trump is all for increasing production. We're probably going to have royalty rates come down offshore.